Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching CCN Game Changers, extraordinary people impacting our everyday lives. I'm Tami DeVine. Well, he changed the game for black leading men in Hollywood. Then Hollywood turned its back on him. But he was already on a journey of self-discovery that led him to the country of his ancestors. Now he works to rebuild that country, recently ravaged by civil war, and the country where I was born, Sierra Leone, West Africa. Isaiah Washington is today's CCN Game Changer. Thanks so much for being here, Isaiah.
Finally.
I know. We've been talking about this for a long time, haven't we?
You've been talking about it for a long time.
I know, and you've been trying to avoid it, but I got you here. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So you have a book out right now, A Man from Another Land. Why did you write the book?
I thought it was really a high time for me to really consolidate a lot of the things that people think they know about me. Particularly after my very high-profile exit from a hit television show. And at the same time, I really wanted to clear up not what was transpired on the show, but clear up why I'm doing what I'm doing now, so people can really get an understanding and an insight about this particular dream that I've been having, obviously, for Africa. And now that I know Sierra Leone, since I was 9 years old.
It's a literal dream that you're talking about.
Literally a dream that I refer to in the book as the rerun. Obviously at the time I did not want to talk about it. I was in the closet about it because of having fear of being ridiculed, particularly growing up in the 70s in Houston, Texas. You just certain things you just don't talk about without someone thinking you're like literally crazy. But having these sequence of events starting from 1972 and then constantly playing themselves out into my young adulthood all the way down to 2009 when the book ends, it started to let me know that there's a little bit more going on with this dream than I thought.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be signing that book right here, right after this program, at 2061 North Los Robles Avenue, Los Robles and Woodbury, here at the Pasadena Community Network. Barnes & Noble is part of this, providing the book and everything, and we appreciate you doing that. What do you want people to walk away with, the people that come here that meet you? You sign their book. It might not be a long interaction, but it'll be a little bit of an interaction. What would you like people to walk away with?
Well, first and foremost, walk away with the book.
Of course.
That's one. And then number two, hopefully reach out to me on Facebook or text Isaiah Washington at 90210 or reach out to me on Twitter at iWashington and give me feedback. Hopefully if I hit my mark, then they will find out that my story is hopefully their story, and that it's a call to action to address a much needed human cause. And that human cause is that I believe that if we continue to ignore Africa, we do so at our peril. And what does that mean? Well, hopefully I explain that in great detail through my journey, that we're all connected to this continent. We can agree to that or debate it anthropologically, but spiritually and karma-wise, I believe that as long as we're ignoring the second largest continent, there's so much we're missing out. And not only just economically, but spiritually, and just, it's the creator of humanity. So why are we not going back to it to help really address some of the societal ills that we have all over the world?
You kind of asked yourself that question, and I'm going to reiterate it because I had a conversation today with somebody, and I said, you know, Isaiah Washington's coming here. He's having his book signing at the Pasadena Community Network, 7 to 9. You know, I give them spiel, right? And then I kind of explained the work that you were doing in Sierra Leone to them, and they said, okay, but what is he doing here? What is he doing about our children that are hurting and suffering here? And you touched on it a little bit, but maybe you can answer that directly.
Well, that's the fundamental problem, is that we have a very microwave existence in this country. You have to understand that in my studies, I didn't start off as an actor. I started off as a person who wanted to play football. And then after that, I started off as a person who ended up getting an aerospace engineering degree as I was in the United States Air Force. So I've always been regimented through certain existences to know that there has to be a certain amount of discipline, and there has to be a certain amount of understanding that everything is not going to happen overnight. Now, that said, it's taken over 400 to 600 years to have, particularly the African American community that I represent, being the various scenarios that we can constantly look on CNN and have shows about years and years after about why our plight is so dire, why our existence is so dire. So to wrap up why I'm doing what I'm doing now is that I was so hurt by the lack of support systems that was in place economically for the Hurricane Katrina victims, and even more so for those that were Caucasian, that more individuals suffered and drowned and died and was treated more horribly in New Orleans outside of the Lower Ninth. Mm-hmm. I wrote an article about it called God Bless the Big Easy on the Huffington Post, citing these Wiggers that were completely treated worse than the African Americans in New Orleans. So I've been trying to use this opportunity in this book to diversify investment, not only in our community here, but I think that if you invest holistically and authentically in the communities of Africa, you can help rebuild ourselves here. Now, is that going to happen overnight? No. But I do know there is a bill called the HR 656 that's been put out by Representative Bobby Rush. You can go online and check it out and read about it, talking about the United States seriously investing in the continent of Africa, where there is about $1.4 trillion available to business persons.
Trillion with a T.
With a T. That's a lot of capital put in the right places and put in the right hands to address a country that we're constantly hearing on the news that we live in today that is suffering from a debilitating recession. So that's one of the reasons.
Okay, let me ask you, let's touch on a little bit more on your early years. You talked about being in the Air Force, growing up in Houston, Texas, having a dream when you were when you were a very young kid about Africa.
What I thought was Africa.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was just children of color, presumably at the time, African American or African, or I thought it was Jamaica. I spent like 5 years in Jamaica thinking, though, this is what I've been dreaming about. I never told my wife. She says, why do we come here Christmas and New Year's to the grill for 5 years? And I'm like, I found the dream, but I can't tell you about it.
But then later you find out, I mean, it kind of came
It wasn't it. It wasn't exactly.
Circle. Yeah.
It's like one of those dreams you have that you know that you can actually go to get an Oscar for a screenplay, or that book, you're going to get a Pulitzer Prize, or that lotto number that you remember in that dream. And as soon as you wake up and you get ready to write it down, you can't remember a thing.
Remember. It's a mist. It disappears.
That's been my rerun since I was 9.
Yeah. Well, and I want to keep kind of diving into your background, your past there a little bit, which, of course, you go into far more detail with in the book.
Sure.
But your father left when you were very young, and then you had an abusive stepfather, which you talk about in the book as well. How do you think that shaped you or impacted you or affected you as a man?
Oh, completely. It let me know on both spectrums. Although I learned a lot of positives from my stepfather, he did have his problems.
There was an incident with a gun.
Yeah, he wasn't too happy with my mom or myself at the time, and if we had been in the wrong place at the right time, I'm sure we would have been dispatched from this earth, and I talk about that in the book. But again, obviously, there was not a perfect marriage between my mom. I can't throw my mom and both of them under the bus, but obviously, being a teenager in the middle of this, it was just, all I could do was support my mom. I didn't know or understand the personal dynamics of their relationship, but I do know that it is wrong to put your hands on a woman, and it was certainly wrong for this person to put their hands on my mom. So just as a teenager, I would have done what anyone would have done, and I am still that way. I think because of I'm the one that would jump to the defense of a woman, even if it's not my wife. I've done it over the years. I had to talk about one incident that happened when I left my mom standing to go help some women that were in trouble on Christmas Day in Brooklyn. It's just something in me that I could tolerate a lot, but I can't really tolerate the abuse of a woman.